right. Good evening. Yes, I come to you in the evening. It's a rarity. Apparently, my first recording got erased, so this is my second attempt at going over Chapter 12, which is an overview of careers in health and fitness. All right, before I get going, I should apologize if you guys hear some background noise. Normally, I record these videos in the morning when no one's at the gym. As of right now, I do have some people at my gym with music going on. So if you hear anything, I do apologize. Um, I did a little pilot test and I didn't hear much background noise, so it shouldn't interfere with uh, this presentation. So first thing I started with were just some possible scenarios, and situations that I have personally went through. So first scenario, right? You are a personal trainer, and a couple comes up to you and say, "Hey, we're looking to compete in our first triathlon in a few months. Can you help us prepare?" Very possible. Next scenario, right? You're at a college which has been expanding their sports program, and because of this expansion, there's an influx of cash into the budget. Well, who's in charge of how this money is spent? What equipment do you need? Do you need to hire more trainers? Do you need to hire a cleaning staff? Did you need to hire a door person? So all of these questions with budgeting and hiring and staffing are something that a fitness director would have to handle. Last question. Uh, Women with a knee replacement, all right, joins your group exercise class, right? She's got a knee replacement. How do you proceed from there? Was she cleared 6 months ago? Was she cleared 8 months ago? Was she cleared 2 months ago? Is she even cleared to exercise? These are all questions that, as a fitness professional, you may have to address. So we start with just what the book identifies as the multidimensional model of health. Right? There's 5 aspects of health, of which physical activity and exercise are all related to. Right? So there's the physical. Right? The physical is the obvious one. Right? We want to get better, whether it's a physical aesthetic appearance or whether it's something physical of just being able to move. Right? So just going from a sit to stand. Right? So that is a very important aspect of health. Emotional, being able to adequately control and express your emotions appropriately is a very important aspect of health. Intellectual health, right? Being able to learn and grow. Spiritual health, what is your sense of meaning or value in the world, right? And then finally, social, which is that ability to have this satisfying social interactions with others, and they all really exist on a spectrum of low to high, and exercise and physical activity can help improve all of these to some degree. Okay? So why health and fitness professions? Um, I don't need to spend too much time on this slide. We all know physical activity has decreased over the past century as our reliance on technology has increased. We are much more sedentary. Because we are much more sedentary in our normal day-to-day life, there's a higher demand or need for physical activity professionals. People need to exercise more, and especially nowadays, people need more guidance, right? So the benefits on exercise and physical activity, I mean, I don't need to go through the list. You can increase your lean body mass, improve heart and lung function, decrease cardiovascular disease, improve cognitive function, so on and so forth. We know the benefits to physical activity. How much physical activity is the next question. Well, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has guidelines that range depending on your population. So for like young children and teenagers, they're typically looking for 60 minutes of physical activity a day. For adults, we can break it down into vigorous or moderate aerobic activity. So if you're having moderate aerobic activity, we're typically looking for approximately 150 minutes per week of moderate. If we've got 75 minutes of vigorous activity, or excuse me, 75 minutes of vigorous activity can be used to replace moderate activity. Now, can you interchange some of these? Absolutely, but there's no exact guidelines if you do 20 minutes of vigorous and 100 minutes of aerobic. There's no exact concrete guidelines on that. So the USD HHS has put forth guidelines on what they want to improve. So metrics like obesity, cardiovascular disease, right? They were looking for a 10% increase in these health metrics by the year 2020. Have we hit those? I can't tell you. I cannot tell you. But one thing that I do need to put forth, which I think we address later on, right, is that, okay, and I'm just going to quote this, right? Physical activity should be viewed as a powerful tool to combat negative health outcomes and promote a healthy lifestyle. Okay, so what is this translated into? Simply put, exercise is medicine. All right, let me say that again. Exercise is medicine. Okay, so a perfect example, right? Somebody's hypertensive, high blood pressure, right? They can take medication to help lower their blood pressure, or they can exercise appropriately, and exercise has been proven to be just as effective at lowering blood pressure in populations. So exercise is medicine and can be very powerful. So within this chapter, we're trying to give you this overview of, well, if you're looking for a career in health and fitness, where can you get a job? Well, there's 4 different positions or places we think you can find a job. That's worksite, commercial, clinical, the community, and public health oriented jobs. We'll go into those one by one. All right, so worksite. So what is worksite? Typically when we think of worksite jobs, we're talking about larger corporations, so corporations with 700-800 people usually, because it's simply something that people have to pay for, like a company has to pay for. So we're thinking of like a Google, a Facebook, some of these major corporations with thousands of employees. They pay people, right, to help come up with exercise programs, exercise classes, help guide people to make sure they stay healthy, right? And then the question be, well, why would they pay them, right? Why are you going to pay people to do these things, right? And it's why offer the programs, and there's several reasons. One, you want to decrease absenteeism at work, right? And by decreasing absenteeism, you can increase the productivity of your workforce, right? In addition, it provides an improved corporate image. We've all heard things of these major tech companies that provide these unique health benefits, and they're a great place to work, right? So it improves that corporate image. And then 4 is it could lower the healthcare costs, right? So how could it lower the healthcare costs? Well, a lot of these major companies, large companies, are now offering their own health insurance. So instead of outsourcing it to a company, they may offer it themselves, right? And if they can offer it themselves, okay, they can help reduce their own personal costs through their healthcare company. So like here's just a random example, right? A random example. Let's say you've been assigned to help reduce absenteeism in the workforce, right? And let's say the current rate is 3.4% of people don't show up on a given day, right? So you meet with your boss and you guys come up with a goal, right? Let's see if we could reduce this to 3.0% through some type of wellness program, right? By decreasing this to 3.0%, right? You can actually reduce the healthcare cost. Maybe people don't have to go to see the doctor. Maybe people don't have to go to see physicians for whatever reason, right? Physical therapist, occupational therapist, that your company, right? Since you're paying for healthcare, your company's paying for that anyway. So you're reducing all of those things. And then by them being at work more often, right? You're improving that productivity again, right? So that's just a quick made up example of how workforce or worksite setting might be used. All right, so what are some settings, or excuse me, what are some programs? Well, you might be doing some type of fitness assessment, health risk screening. You might be working one-on-one with people. You might be doing group fitness. You might be in charge of a spa, dietitian. These are all just some possible examples. So commercial setting. So within a commercial setting, right? Now we're starting to talk a little bit more about gyms, commercial gyms. So what's a commercial gym? I don't know. You've got your New York sports clubs, your Equinox, Lifetime, Retro Fitness, so on and so forth. The book highlights two models, two business models, and you guys could kind of figure it out on your own, which serves which, but sales-based model is the most common, right? Your goal within these gyms is to sell as many memberships as possible. There's no limit on your memberships, right? And typically what they employ are some type of predatory advertising. They put like really fit people on the window and say, hey, like we can get you there, whatever it is. They might employ deceptive sales strategies within the contracts. I can tell you a gym that I know have these airtight contracts where it's impossible to get out of them. Even though maybe like a salesman might have actually lied to them. I've seen things like that, right? So these are sales-based memberships. And I was talking to someone about 4 or 5 days ago. He happened to work at, he happened to work at Planet Fitness in the corporate office of one of the franchises. And, they were telling me like at his gym, they would typically on average have about 15,000 members per gym. It obviously depends on the location, but having 15,000 members, right? Do you think all of these people actually come to the gym? No, no way. They couldn't possibly serve that many. They couldn't possibly serve half of those many people if they came to the gym regularly 3, 4, 5 days a week. So what do they rely on? They rely on 15,000 people signing up at $10 a month, right? And expect about 500 to 1,000 of them regularly show up. But guess what? The price is so low, the price point is so low, and I'm sure they have all sorts of models out there which show how long somebody's willing to just keep rattling off $10, $10, $10, and not show up for 6 months, year and a half. Some people in this class, I guarantee you guys have had cheap memberships and really just never went, right? And that's kind of what that sales-based model is all about. Then you've got retention-based models, and a smaller boutique gym like mine is definitely more within this retention-based, right? Where like my number one priority is meeting the goals of my clients or members, and if I'm not doing that, they're most likely to leave. Do I have contracts? Yeah, but after about 6 months, all my members are on month to month, and they can leave whenever they want. But as long as we're providing a good service, I'm not worried about them leaving. I just, I just focus on the product, the service that's put forth. Another aspect of this model, right, is, I've done all sorts of advertising in the past. I've done Facebook, I've done papers, I've done magazines, I've done charity events, and honestly, it never really works out. I probably haven't paid for advertising in years at this point, 3, 4, 5 years. I am 95% referrals at this point. People come to me because other people recommend me. And again, it comes down to putting forth a good product. But on the flip side, right, of a sales-based membership, which is only $10 a month, my gym, right, is much more expensive. To train with me, it's somewhere between our lowest price point is $110 a month versus our highest price point is $175 a month. Right, so clearly there's some, and obviously we're not going to have as many members, right? I'm not going to have 15,000 members, right? For me, my goal is always about 100 members, and I don't even get that in a lot of our off season. Okay, so you guys can start to see the differences. So the clinical setting. Is kind of just what you would expect: hospitals, medical facilities, PT offices and clinics, things like that, where your goal in this clinical setting is to manage medical conditions, right? So what are some of these things? Well, just what you would expect: some type of preventative screenings, cardiac rehab, water exercise therapy, nutrition counseling. But usually within these clinical settings, we're putting forth, again, that statement that I stated earlier today, is that exercise is medicine. Exercise is medicine. The next setting is the community setting. And the community community setting is really where we're looking at any type of local recreation center. So your YMCA's, your JCC's, city parks, so on and so forth. And really these recreational centers, right, are put forth to fill a need within the community. Okay. So some needs, right, are just kind of listed here. You know, putting together walking groups for seniors, aquatic instruction, group exercise. Um, some issues with these are that resources are simply more limited usually at these local community centers. You know, they rely heavily on volunteers. So what I always tell people is, for all of you that are trying to get in the field of health and fitness, especially personal training, whatever it is, this is your entry point. This is your entry point. Get to your local YMCA, JCC, whatever it is, and volunteer, right? I guarantee they're always looking for help. Maybe it's cleaning, whether it's working a front desk, right? Get in now. Then after volunteering, who knows, maybe there's a paid position that opens up. After getting a paid position of working at a desk, maybe you're interested in personal training, maybe you're interested in something else, maybe a director of one of these facilities, and you can work your way up. So this is really a great entry point. Even if you want to get into public health oriented jobs, which we later get into in this presentation, this is your starting point for that. You want to move up from from a front desk person to a manager in one of these locations, then moving up within the community on passing bills and whatnot. This is your starting point. All right, so population based careers, right? So really what we're talking about is the big picture, right? Almost everything up to this point has really been focusing on one-on-one or small groups, small groups even being 30, 40, or 50, right? This is now big picture. We're looking at the community, state, and federal type jobs. So like at the federal level, right? This link is a video to one of those smoking commercials, right? So I think it's the CDC. I'm not sure. Is it the CDC that put forth those smoking commercials? I don't know. But, those smoking commercials you see on TV where it's like everyone wants to look away because they're disgusting. You see all sorts of like gross kind of things, right? Well, who puts those commercials out? Okay. And who comes up with these health-based jobs? I mean, they are health-based jobs, but they're obviously at a much larger level than the one-on-one personal training or PT type level, right? And that's kind of what these population-based setting careers are about. All right, so what are the career opportunities? I mean, this is just a list of them all, and we'll get into them a little bit in some of the other chapters, right? This is chapter 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. The remaining four, right, are really more of an in-depth look at these. But you've got group exercise instructor, right? What are some benefits of that? Well, it requires the least training usually, maybe some random certification, but sometimes it's probably the least amount of pay. Okay, pros and cons. Personal trainer. Nice thing about a personal trainer is that you usually get to operate a little bit more autonomously with your schedule. Okay, you put people wherever you need. Some downs, well, the downside is it requires a little bit of marketing and definitely a lot of sales skills. If you guys sat in on my presentation where I spoke about personal training, I talked about how you just need to be a salesman if you want to be a personal trainer. You can be the best, most knowledgeable trainer in the world, but if you don't know how to speak to people and to kind of let them know what it is that you do, you'll never, quote unquote, fill your book, right? Health and fitness specialist, I put question marks because it seemed very, very much so similar to a personal trainer, right? A health and wellness coach, a little bit different. A health and wellness coach, we're now focusing a little bit more on behavioral changes, right? So what is it, the American College on Exercise, ACE, has a certification in this. I think behavioral changes really are a little bit more rooted in psychological aspects of change and health. Why are we making the decision to not go to the gym? What's going on with our motivation? Why are we making a decision to eat a certain type of food if we know, in this case, eating it frequently enough is not going to be good for us, whatever. So the health and wellness coach is typically looking at behavioral changes. And you've got your specialty positions. So now we're starting to get into positions and careers that require a little bit more education, right? So an exercise physiologist, ACSM has several levels of ex-phys certifications. Obviously, a PT that requires a doctorate, an athletic trainer now requires a master's, right? So you're starting to see that all of these require a little bit more education, a little bit more work. If you want to get into the public health sector, right, working with those local, state, and federal agencies to implement some types of programs, typically you're looking at like usually you need a master's degree. So that's why I was saying I think if you work at like a YMCA while you're in school, part time, you're starting to get to know like the community level of things, especially if you could work in management. And then you receive your master's degree. Hopefully you work your way up, and you could kind of branch out from there. I think that looks good on a resume. Health and fitness director. I wrote not so glorious, but what do they do? They hire, train staff, budget, business planning, marketing, whatever it is. I wrote not so glorious because I can just tell you guys, again, I try to give you guys some real life stories. So when I was at my local New York sports club, after a year and a half, I was working a few jobs, but a position came up at my gym to be the fitness manager. So I interviewed for the position, and they offered the position to me. I think it was just one interview, and the starting salary for what was a fitness manager at a fairly large corporate gym. We had about 2,000 members at our local New York sports club. The starting salary was $37,000. So it's not. I don't want to sneeze at $37,000, but I mean you could make that working in a restaurant, and I know because I've done that, right? You can make that working, 30 hours a week in a restaurant, 35 hours a week in a restaurant. Um, and the more important part of this story is that you think I would be a manager at a large club with a couple thousand members. I would oversee training of probably a staff of like up to 15 trainers, probably maybe more, in addition to helping out with managed schedules, cleaning, scheduling, cleaning the gym, and all of those things, right? And these commercial gyms, listen, they're cheap. They are cheap. They don't want to pay you things. So that's why I wrote not so glorious. That's just my one anecdotal story for you guys. All right, and the last thing is just continuing ed. This chapter finishes by like, there's a section on how do you determine where you get your continuing education from, and there's a lot of certifications out there. So the text lists a three-step process, right? So the first box to check off is it accredited, right? So the National Commission for Certifying Agencies, the NCCA, right, accredits all sorts of certifications. So check that. Now, if it's not accredited, no big deal. Doesn't mean it's terrible. Look into the certification. Go to their website, speak to their instructors, get some information about it from them, and you could kind of make your own informed opinion based on what they're putting forth. The last tip, right, that I would give you is ask experts. And this might be the most important. You know, talk to the professionals, talk to other physical therapists, talk to other personal trainers, talk to other OTs, right? Ask them, okay, have you taken this cert? Are you familiar with it? Do you know anyone who else is familiar with it? What do you think? They'll tell you pretty quickly. I can probably tell you guys about 15, 20 certifications within the personal training realm, and I can tell you which ones are good and which ones aren't. So talk to the professionals and ask the experts. All right, that's a wrap for this. If any of you guys have any questions, let me know.